Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another fantastic episode on the Unleashing Potentials podcast. Joining me today is Lesley Andrew. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, good to
Yeah,
be here. I'm really
good
pleased
to
that
have
you
you.
having
Yeah,
me on board.
yeah. Lesley, where about are you? Are you in the UK?
Yeah. I'm in the UK in sort of north of England in like a county called Yorkshire. So
Oh,
it's probably one of the biggest counties in the UK.
yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm so excited to get to know you and more of what you do. So tell us, what is your story and what are you doing right now?
Yeah, so I'm an artist and art therapist, and I'd probably say that they're integral to one another.
Mhm,
So art therapy is about using art and creativity to improve mental health, to help people to express themselves and process experiences and process emotions. And
mhm,
then there's those sorts of very innate experiences, therapeutic experiences of art generally
yeah.
that come in with me like stepping in and stepping up as an artist. So I I've always loved art. Like even as a child, I was always we'd watch all these TV programs and I'd be making something during it, or there'd be a TV show where there'd be an art or craft thing on, and I would have to, no matter what, go and get the materials and be making. And so it's always been there. And yeah, I studied art as as a degree, and then went into art teaching. I
Yeah.
was an art teacher for 11 years and then made the pivot towards art therapy
Mhm.
after, I suppose, that realization that it was less about the outcome and what the art looked like and less about what um what grades the students got and more about their well-being and more about the process and using those materials to play and experiment and to really connect with our truth really and like
Mhm.
what's at the core of us. Like our well-being is so important that it's such a powerful I feel so passionate about it because it's because I know that I've really benefited from it as well as my clients.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. I love what you do because it resonates so much with who I am. Yeah, I'm slowly calling myself an artist. It's a big label, isn't it? And we can get
Mm,
lost in it. So I definitely get your perspective to not get too attached to the label, more so of what it does. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. Let's talk about art and mental health. For me,
yeah,
it's medicine, but I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
yeah. I think calling it medicine's a really good angle
Yeah.
because actually, when we take medicine for something, we're prescribed that. And actually, we take it as a routine. And that actually, if we stop taking that medicine, then we might see some of those symptoms coming back and we might struggle. And, whether it's a physical thing or sort of mental health thing, that actually using it as medicine and they'll say that, exercise as well. So there's so many different things that really help to improve mental health.
Mhm.
I have a framework that I put together called sort of Art Heals Focus 5 framework to help people to set intentions really and to understand what's going on for themselves so that they can make a link between the type of art that they're making and how they're feeling. So I speak to so many people who are aren't really sure where to start when it comes to art making, either that they're really anxious or feeling really numb, like their mood is really low, maybe feeling quite depressed, whatever it is that's going on for them. And more often than not, somebody that's in those emotional states,
Mhm.
they kind of know what would be helpful, but they find it hard to actually do it. And it takes a bit of discipline for a lot of people anyway to do things that are going to be helpful. So the first part of that framework is to activate, and like that's about boosting mood. It's about behavior activation to
Mhm.
do the art making or something creative as a planned exercise. So rather than waiting until you're feeling inspired or feeling motivated or ready,
Yeah.
then you schedule some art practice time, art making time, or even go out with your camera and take photographs, but
Yeah.
schedule that in before you're ready.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then comes emotional regulation. So this is where I think where a lot of people would seem maybe whether they're feeling flat and need to use the art to up level, to energize, or
Yeah.
feeling really agitated and feel a need to feel calmer and more rested and more at balance. And the types of materials that can be used can really have a big impact on that.
Mhm.
So an awareness. Sometimes people don't know where they are because they're feeling up and down and all over, and
Yeah.
that's quite common as well.
Mhm.
So then actually starting to do something can help somebody to get to know what's going on for them, whether they are up and down. And then the next three are much more about the creative part and the expression part. So exploring ideas,
Mhm.
explore, express, empower. So exploring ideas of who they are, what the world feels like and looks like for them, what their values are, and being able to express that. And
Yeah.
the empowerment for as an art, this is how I would see this as an artist as well as in sort of therapy. Because to improve mental health, it's not about going to therapy, it's about doing the things that can be helpful. But there's a time and a place when therapy can come in, when it can be really useful to have that extra support. But the way that I see, really leaning into creativity and allowing, giving yourself permission
Mhm.
is empowering in itself. And making those choices about what you're doing is really empowering, especially when there's things in your life or things that have been in your life in the past that have felt really beyond your control and disempowering. So something as simple as choosing the colours that you wear or the colours that you make your art from
Mhm.
can have a huge impact on mental health.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. I had two questions and then it went to five and then 10 and 20. By the time it got to 25, I lost it all. That's how much I love everything you're talking about. And you're touching on key things that we need to focus on more. What I'm hearing is to just express, regardless
Mm,
of what it looks like. I would say that's one blockage for me, maybe for other people as well, that or either beginners or even professional artists, they have, I call it artist block. Maybe it already
yeah.
is a word or a thing. How can we create from the soul versus the
Mm,
mind? And I know the heart is there too, but the mind, it's hard to create from all of those three places to make it make sense.
yeah. And we're in our heads a lot, aren't we? We're
Oh,
very
I
much in our
yeah, I
heads a
live
lot.
there.
Yeah. And it's like a lot of kind of the way that sort of mental health's talked about and a lot of the way that, you know, ideas are talked about is from a cognitive point of view. People often talk about feelings from a think they think about their feelings, but they might not feel their feelings.
Yeah.
They really push them down.
Mhm.
So that that's like a top to bottom approach. So you're going from the top, thinking, then we go into emotional, and then we might go into the body, into the sensory. So and into that's like where I'd say the heart stuff is. Whereas connecting with the sensory experience of the art making, noticing and being mindful of, how soft a pastel is or what the clay feels like in your hands and
Mhm.
touching it and manipulating it. Like adults using slime, for example. How many adults allow themselves to really play? So getting into the sensory experiences and then connecting with the emotions and then going getting your cognition coming into that. So what seems to happen for because I know when I'm in my head and I'm overthinking things and I do exactly the same. I could be in a really bad mood and then I'll make some art and I go, I know exactly why I was feeling like that. I've just not made any art all week or all month. And yeah, we get into our heads a lot and certain things about trying to make art to look a certain way, to look good,
Mhm.
that's coming from the head. That's coming from a pressure to perform, maybe a judgment about what it's going to look like, what
Mhm.
that might mean to you as a person. Whereas if we allow ourselves to just play around, experiment, test out new things, and to make mistakes, maybe make something like ugly art on purpose, then that comes from the heart. That certainly comes from the heart. I find myself saying I swing from like swear words to lots of oohs in my art, and I know if I if I'm allowing myself, I could lose track of time sometimes where I'm in that real flow state where I could have multiple paintings on at the same time that I'm working on, and suddenly hours have gone by and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I've not really recognized it. I'm not in those moments, I'm not concerned about each individual thing, but it's bouncing around and using those things. So this is part of what I would say is about connecting with the process, not the outcome, and that journey
Yeah.
and that non-verbal approach to therapy. It's not about trying to interpret it or finding the words for it, but
Mhm.
just letting whatever come up.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. Excuse me. Let's talk about creativity in terms of how do I put this? As an art therapist, what shift have you noticed that's been happening within teaching environments? Like with kids learning, adults learning, um, is there enough support to help people without judging them before they learn?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a long time since I was working in a school. So we're talking 13 years since I
Oh, okay.
was teaching. So it is a long time in that respect.
Hmm.
But I mean, I know a lot of people who struggle with the educational environment, and it's not that they don't want to learn, they're very keen on learning. It's just the structure is very, very rigid. And even maybe not they've not got that creativity. They're not necessarily accessing something that meets their learning style
Hmm.
and their need for maybe sensory breaks or like their need to stand up and spin around or so for a lot of children it is about how much they can access and how much they as individuals can access, as well as the curriculum being maybe more about the exams and more about what the final outcome is.
Hmm.
So when I was a teacher, I suppose one of the best things that I always loved about teaching art was that there were certain things I even remember a phrase of exploiting the potential of the art process and the art materials. So it was never purely about the quality of the drawings and the paintings. There was an element of ideas there and looking at different artists and looking at different inspiration. There's an element of that, as well as saying, okay, we've got all of these different materials. We want to really exploit the potential of those materials. And what that might mean is testing something out that might not ordinarily fit well,
Hmm.
but then doing it with intention. So the difference with education, art education and art therapy, is that when there is a different intention when you're putting, say, two colours together that contrast, then it might be more of an aesthetic thing. Whereas two colours that contrast might represent contrasting emotions, maybe, or
Hmm.
something different. But I mean, I could. I'd love to see more of the arts in education, more
Mm.
more time on that, and more opportunities for sort of longer time on that, nipping in and out of things. But yeah, it seems to be where a lot of cuts are still,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing. Are you still an art therapist today?
Mm,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, give me an example, a scenario of how you would, for example, help a client process emotions through arts. Let's say I'm
mm,
one of your clients and I've never seen an art therapist. What would you give?
yeah. I suppose like framing it and getting to know everybody. Everyone's different, and everyone's experiences of the art making is different, as well as everyone's understanding as to like what their goals would be. So for some people I see online, some people I see in person at a venue. It could be like I work with a lot of young people as well as adults. So sometimes it's in a school or a college, or sometimes it's in a home. Um, and meeting them where they are. So an adult, for instance, might be that they might not you might not have made any art. I mean, no, you have, but you might not have made any art since you were a child. So actually leaning into that, I like set that frame as about, well, if you're wanting to use the art materials as a way of starting somewhere, there's no pressure to actually make something that's got a really heavy meaning or anything like that. We can do like experiment. We can do some drawings and get some crayons out and talk while we're making art, or whatever it ends up being looking like. And what I tended to find is that I suppose people might not really, they kind of know a sense as to how it would be useful, but not really how it would be useful for them. And
Mm,
then it's when they really experience it and allow themselves to slow down or be mindful as to, well, what's going on? I've just got a biro in my hand here. Even like something as simple as a biro, pen, somebody can notice how they're drawing and then say, oh, I was when I started, I was holding the pen really tightly, and now it's softer. It feels like lighter. I don't feel as stressed. Feels like there's something intense with that. So
mhm,
it's helping people in my online work with adults,
mhm,
particularly women. Like I do a lot of work with sort of women in midlife who are maybe wanting to rediscover themselves and
mhm,
like get their confidence back.
mhm,
With that level of support, there is a mixture of art therapy and coaching, and I bring in like there's chance really to really boost
yeah,
their well-being, because they probably maybe sometimes people do suppress their emotions, they push their feelings down, or
mm,
they feel that they don't know how to talk about things, but having that non-verbal approach can help.
mm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
finding myself
yeah.
sort of going around to houses with that, and I think what I'm just reflecting on, going around the houses to explain art therapy when it's really about a non-verbal thing and
Mm.
saying a lot of words to describe it can be can look a bit confusing, because like we can often say like loads and loads of words and still not feel quite understood, and that's what a lot of people experience.
hmm Yeah, thank you for sharing. Thank you. Yeah, I love creating. Yeah, I've shared some of my arts online. People say I should teach, but I think I'm my worst enemy when it comes to that. I think most of us do that, right? We create, and people often sees in us what we fail to see in ourselves. Would you say
Mm,
that's true when it comes to creating?
yeah, I say so. Yeah, I think a lot of people worry about having images interpreted,
Hmm.
but then sometimes they want someone to say, oh, actually, I love how that looks. Or we can be our own worst enemies. Like artists are really big critics. And it's
Yeah.
because we know all, like somebody that's been maybe trained or spent a long time making art and trying different things. there's an awareness of the layers that have gone into it, and there's an awareness of what's possible
Yeah.
and what you only know how much effort you put into something. So if something's taken a really short time and then somebody's giving you like a lot of positive praise about that, then it might not match, but actually aesthetically it's what somebody really enjoys. But we give ourselves a hard time, and it that gets me back to what I was saying at the start about sort of productivity and purpose and doing something that's perfect, that sometimes people find that they have to work really hard to prove that it's worth it, rather than a natural talent almost
Yeah.
isn't allowed that praise. But I don't know whether there's a bit of an imposter syndrome pattern for a lot of artists, or whether it is just that they enjoy the process, and then you kind of want them to go, I need you to look at the process, not look at the outcome only. So if,
Mhm.
yeah, but then I think that can be really scary for people as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Thank you for sharing. So
Hmm.
as we wrap up, I have three questions for you. What would you like people to get from this episode today?
I'd like people to feel that it's okay for them to express themselves in a creative way, that their voice matters and their art matters, and like it's up to them how they approach that. There's no wrong way of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. What is the meaning of life for you?
Oh, that's big. I just think kind of, being true to myself is what really matters, and making it's like that, having that authentic connected expression,
Yeah.
which like when you're being authentic to yourself. And for me it's living to my values, being like allowing my personality to come out, and then I'm connecting with people and connecting with the earth and connecting with my art, connecting with myself.
Yeah.
Then that helps me to then express something into the world, which is then that's when I feel the most alive as well, and when life does have more meaning. So
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. So Lesley, where can people find you, work with you, and check out the work that you're doing?
Okay, so I have a website called lesleyandrew.com,
Mhm.
and I'd say that social media wise, my main space is Instagram. I do have things on other platforms as well, but Instagram's the main one, and that's Lesley Andrew, art therapist.
Awesome. Well,
There's
Lesley,
various dots in amongst it as well.
oh, okay, okay. Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, it's Lesley_Andrew dot art dot therapist.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you for coming on the podcast today. It was an honor to speak to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's good to speak to another artist. And
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome.